Hello everyone. This is going to be a little bit of a different video than my normal videos. See, I watched the recent Bardic Aggravation video on the top 10 reasons to try DC20 instead of D&D, and I really liked it. I agreed with a lot of what they had to say, and I think it was a really positive message. On top of that, I've seen a lot of people in the community ask for videos that help get people into DC20, rather than just explain how it works. So I wanted to take a little bit of my own stab at the video. Rather than really being a comparison to D&D, I just wanted to make a top 10 reasons of why I love DC20. And I wanted to give myself a little bit of the extra challenge. I'm not going to reference any of the top 10 reasons that were included in the Bardic Aggravation video. In fact, I highly recommend you watch that video after this one, or if you want to, go watch that one first and come back to this one. It should be up on the screen now, and I'm going to have it in the description as well. So, let's get into my top 10 reasons for why I love DC20. The first one is the initiative system. I love that the initiative system in DC20 goes back and forth between monsters and players. Now, I also like other things about the initiative system, like the fact that you roll against a DC, so there's not as much rolling going on, but mainly it's the idea of going back and forth between players and enemies. I think it adds such a dynamic feel to the fight, where you take your turn, and then an enemy takes a turn, and then a player takes a turn, and it just goes back and forth in this way where the tide can constantly change. In other games where initiative doesn't work this way, it can sometimes feel like all the players act, and then all the enemies act, and there's not really this swing to combat where things feel like they can change back and forth. It just feels like one big swing one way, and then probably one big swing another way. And so this is a really minor change, but it's something I think does a huge impact on the feel of a fight, where you always feel like there's something that could happen, and you need to be prepared at every turn. Next up, at number 9, is AP being refreshed at the end of your turn, and the focus on reactions. So AP being refreshed at the end of your turns means if you take all your AP on your turn, you end your turn, you get all your AP back. And what this does is it incentivizes you to really do everything you can on your turn. And then once the AP is refreshed, well, you can, take some of that AP and use it on reactions, knowing that you're using some of the AP you could use on your next turn. But when you're taking these reactions, you're making the informed choice. You're deciding now that you want to be able to do something to have less AP in the future, rather than a system where you have to save AP on your turn and say, well, maybe I'll do less now because maybe I'm going to want to do something later. It feels like it removes the opportunity for you to do things, it increases the chances that you just waste AP, and it leads to this sort of feels bad feeling where you go through, you take your turn, you don't really do what you wanted to do because maybe you're going to want to do something later, and then that chance might or might not come, and it really just puts you in this weird feeling. But this system allows for you to just do everything you want on your turn, everything you can, and then off turn, you get to make that choice. Well, maybe I don't want to react now because I want to be able to do all 4 action points on my turn. Or maybe you say, no, screw it. Like right now is the perfect time. I'm gonna just pump all of my AP into doing something right now because I want to, and I don't care if next turn I don't get to do anything. And when it gets around to your turn and oh, okay, well, I only have 2 AP because I already took like quite a few reactions. You kind of feel better about that choice because you made that choice ahead of time. You actually did something with those AP. And the nice part is there is so much to do with your action points as reactions. There are plenty of reactions in the game that can do things from protecting yourself, to help protect allies, to helping allies, to being able to even counter spells. There are so many different ways that you can use your reactions in DC20, which really helps the game feel dynamic alongside the initiative system. Players are constantly engaged because there's almost always something you could be doing. Alright, number 8, prime and no required attributes. So what do I mean here? I mean that classes don't require you to have specific attributes. This is something that feels very restrictive, but people are very used to when they play systems like D&D, where you sort of need to have a specific attribute or ability score to play a certain class. In DC20, those things are detached. You can decide to, have any of your stats arranged in any way that you want, and Prime is going to be there to help your class work. It's going to help you attack or cast spells, and this really helps you feel like you can build a character the way you want to. You can decide to combine any kind of class fantasy with any kind of arrangement of attributes. And it really helps add to this feeling of customizability and choice in character creation. Something that I think people miss out on when they get used to it. They get used to Prime and no attributes, and they kind of forget how nice it is to not have to worry about how your attributes are going to impact your class and what you're able to do with your class. Those things are completely unrelated, and it really helps make attributes feel like they're their own system, not just some prerequisite system to be able to use classes. Number 7, stacking advantage and disadvantage. You might be surprised to see this so far up on the list for a pretty basic thing, but I really think it's a pretty fundamental difference. I think not having stacking advantage and disadvantage makes your system feel very flat. The idea being that no matter how many advantages you might be able to get on a situation, it's not going to change anything. You still roll with the same advantage. And no matter how many disadvantages you have, well, that doesn't really matter. They're all the same. You could be, screwed 5 times over in a really bad situation. You could be blinded and stuck in a net, and you'd still just be able to attack just as well as just being blinded or just being stuck in a net. And that really doesn't make sense mechanically or narratively. On top of that, I think there's an important element, which is that advantages and disadvantages cancel out. If you have way more advantage than disadvantage, then you have advantage overall, which makes sense. Sure, something might be holding you back, but you have way more things helping you than holding you back. And so that should be reflected. Not this weird system where if you have 5 things helping you and 1 thing holding you back, then it's as if nothing ever happened. All right, number 6, dynamic attack saves. This is part of the system that I think people overlook a lot. I think people overlook the fact that when you add something like a maneuver to an attack, or a save maneuver specifically, you get to have that save maneuver happen no matter whether you hit or not. Dynamic attack saves are this pretty fundamental principle of DC20 where when you make an attack that also has a save attached to it, both of those happen simultaneously. Now, there's a nice element to this, which is that it saves a little bit of time since both of the rolls happen simultaneously, but I think beyond that, the nice part is that you never really waste your AP, right, or your resources in general. When you spend a resource to get something to happen, like a maneuver to happen, you're guaranteed to get that save to happen. It doesn't matter if you hit or miss. You just know that when you're spending a resource for something, you're going to get at least a try out of it, right? You won't for sure get that condition to happen or whatever it is that you're trying to put a save for, but you at least know that you're going to try for it even if your attack rolls poorly. Okay, number 5, the MP system and spell enhancements. I think this is pretty basic, but it really helps make casters feel fun. The MP system allows you to have a mana pool rather than having spell slots, which is not entirely unique. A lot of systems, in fact, probably most systems with mana have something close to a mana pool. But I think the interesting thing is that it combines with the spell enhancement system. That when you have spells, you can actually choose to enhance them in a variety of ways, choosing to build your spell to fit a certain situation. You can enhance its range, or its damage, or the amount of area it covers, or even some interesting fancy effects. And all of that is a choice that you can make by spending more mana into the spell. So I think both of these two systems are really combined together, which is why I put them together as this note. Both of these systems work together to make casting spells feel a lot more interesting in DC20 than it can in a lot of other games. All right, number 4 is the SP system. Yeah, I think the SP system is a bigger improvement than the MP system. I like it better. In fact, I like it probably a bit better. There's a pretty big jump here because the SP system is a pretty big change in how martials play. It makes martials so much more fun and engaging to play with because you have this resource to spend. And it's a really interesting playstyle where you gain the resource and you spend the resource, right? And it incentivizes you to play like your class wants you to play. You gain stamina when you do things that your class likes, and then you use that stamina to get powerful benefits that make sense for your class. Rogues like to spend stamina to inflict conditions, and they get stamina back when they attack people with conditions. Commanders like to spend stamina to get allies to make strong attacks, and they get stamina back by helping allies. All these stamina regen features and the stamina spenders that these classes have really work great together to make a class feel like the class it's supposed to be with this unique and fun system. Alright, number 3, the Ancestry system. This is probably and could be a stand-in for customizability, but I said I wasn't going to repeat anything, so I'm going specifically with the Ancestry system, because I think it's by far the best example of these pick-and-choose systems that you have in DC20. I can decide with the Ancestry system to make any ancestry I want. And sure, I can use one of the default ancestries, and I can do so better than a lot of other games. If you take a look at elves in DC20, there are a lot of ways that you can build elves in DC20, and there are probably more kinds of elves you can build in DC20 than the kinds of elves in D&D, even though D&D has so many variants of elves. And that's the thing. The DC20 system allows you to build all kinds of weird and interesting ancestries that allow you to really express what you want. And in fact, the nice part is you can build custom ancestries just with the ancestry system that exists. You don't have to rely on knowing how to design features and knowing how many features to put in and what a power budget is to decide exactly how strong your ancestry is. You can just mix and match with features that already exist and make an ancestry that feels like the thing that you want to play. And sure, you could customize and create whole new homebrew features for the ancestry system, but the ancestry system fills a lot of gaps, and while that's neat, it's not really required for you to make new and innovative ancestries. So overall, I think the ancestry system does a great job at giving players a choice in making things that they want out of their ancestry, and not just having to play certain cutouts just because, well, those are the ones that are presented. Number 2 is game balance. Now, some of you might laugh a little bit at hearing this because I've probably complained about a little bit of game balance in the past, especially if you've seen me around on the Discord. There are features like secondary arms, which I know I poke fun at for being ridiculously broken. But the point is that features like secondary arms are really the drastic minority in the game. For the most part, the game has a lot of very strong balance. A lot of features compare very well with a lot of other features. And even beyond just features, things like weapons. My favorite example of how well the game balance works is to compare a two-handed heavy weapon with a versatile weapon, especially when both of them have impact. See, in this case, you're trading, do you want a choice where you have the heavy weapon for a greater base damage, or do you want the versatile weapon for a greater chance to hit? And both of these weapons are pretty equally good. The heavy weapon is technically a little bit better as far as the damage you're going to deal on average, but the versatile weapon also has the benefit of versatility. You can wield it with just one hand if you want to. You can do something else with the other hand if you need to. You can, grab someone with the other hand. You can decide to have that shield when you want it. And so you have an actual choice. And this is a thing that sometimes people get, a little bit caught up with the potential choices that you could have. But the better question is, how many choices are you really going to make? How many choices are just obvious that you just need to take them, and so they aren't really a choice? It's just something that you have to pick up. It's a tax that you need to take. It's just something that is mandatory for all characters to take, and DC20 really lacks a lot of these taxes. It really encourages you to actually make choices when you want to. Decide which weapon you want and how you want to build it. Decide your ancestries, and build them as you see fit. This is something huge about DC20 that really makes it a very fun game to play, and it's something that brought me into the game very heavily, was just being able to appreciate that, wow, I actually have a choice, and those choices are meaningful. And it can be a little bit hard to notice that if you don't get deep into the math, but I've honestly seen this proven over and over again. Okay, so what does a nerdy guy like me love even more than game balance? What is my number 1? Well, my number 1 is the community. It's all of you. It's everyone watching this video. It's everyone in the Discord who keeps loving this game. It's all the 20,000 people and more on Kickstarter who pledged over $2 million to this game. This game wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for everyone who loves it, and all the people, the entire community who's surrounded. I love this game so much, and I'm not the only one. Every day I see people talk about how much they love this game. I'm reminded that there are so many other people who really enjoy working with this game. I joined the Discord server for this game in June 21st, and as of recently, I became a dev for this game. And it's something I still don't think about too hard because I get a little bit of imposter syndrome just thinking about working with a lot of the people who have made this amazingly balanced and fun to play game. And yet, here I am, watching people work on this game and make it better every day, and watching people who just enjoy playing the game and enjoy even just thinking about making characters. There is so much that people do for this game, including a lot of other amazing content creators who have started making videos basically just about DC20, like Bardic Aggravation that I mentioned at the beginning. Their stuff has been awesome to watch, and while I make a lot of DC20 videos that are focused just on game balance, that's just because that's what I know best. But it's awesome to see other channels that are dedicated to filling in other gaps in the DC20 community. People focused on things like roleplay and imagining and how to create and build characters. There's a lot that people have contributed to this game, and it's really great to see how much other people love this game. And it really helps me convince myself that this is something I really love working for, because not only do I love playing this game, but so many other people do. And it's not really a surprise when you look at how many people could come up with different top 10 lists of the things they love about this game. So, thank you so much for listening to this video, and I hope you love the game as much as I love the game. Until the next time, have the best time.